welcome back to Edit Career Schools, The Scoop with your host, Kathy Belletti. So today we're talking all about admissions. Now, there is no secret that there is a huge shortage in higher education, specifically the admissions teams. So a lot of turnover, more than ever before. So now we have to think to ourselves, what's going on? Where are we going wrong? How do we get back on track? How do we start to rebuild? Now, here's the interesting thing. I always have people asking me, do you think that admissions advising is for me? Do you think that this is, a career path that I should take? On the contrary, I have a lot of advisors who have been in the industry for so many years and they're like, is this still for me? you know, I'm starting to feel as if I am incompetent and this is something that I'm just not good at anymore. So that is even more important because we have to get to the bottom of what is happening. And sometimes as a tenured advisor, because of all of the changes in higher education, you forget what worked for you. Sometimes you just have to return back to basics and use those tactics that made you successful in the very beginning, but then also get back to here. Okay. Why did you want to pursue a career as an advisor years ago? And what has changed? A lot of times when you're able to pinpoint where things started to go left, you're like, aha, that's the problem. It was my boss. Just kidding. But I do hear that a lot. Okay. So what I'm going to do is go over the top four, and this is for anyone considering, being an admissions advisor, and for those tenured advisors out there who have been doing such an amazing job, but you're at the point where you're like, I don't know. I don't know if this is still for me. Okay. So the first thing, communicator, you have to be a great communicator. All right. When you think of a communication process, it's between two people, right? It takes for one person to speak and for the other one to listen and digest what that person is saying so that you can now respond appropriately. When we talk about higher education, old school sales, right? A student comes in, they're telling you exactly what they want, and you could care less. It's you have your own vendetta, right? And you're thinking to yourself, I have my own mission. All right. So I am just going to sit here and I'm going to hear what the person is saying. But at the end of the day, I need to get this enrollment. I had so many advisors admit to me that honestly, when I was on the phone, the only thing I could think of is I need them to enroll. So even if the student was talking about a specific program, they might have enrolled in that program, but it was the wrong one. Why? Because the entire middle was missing. If in fact that advisor was listening to what the student was saying, they would have been able to pick up on some of those cues and say to the person, whoa, wait a minute, you are way off track. But sometimes when you have your own agenda, it really doesn't matter what the other person says. You need them to do what you need them to do. Now, when you talk about effective communication in admissions, you're able to be on the phone with a student or have someone sit in front of you. They come in, they ask a question about a program that they dreamed of, right? But then you start to ask all these questions. All right, so tell me about that. What got you interested? you know Tell me something about that program. What do you know? What do you enjoy doing? What kind of environment do you see yourself working in? Do you like being upfront with people, or do you like working in the background? Are you more like an introvert? You like to work independently, away from people? A lot of times, based on those responses, you can now say, wait a minute. Okay, so you did come in for this program, but based on what you told me, I've been listening to you and you seem really passionate about X, Y, and Z. I think this program would be a better fit for you, and here's why. When you're able to listen, right, you're able to become a better communicator. And guess what? Your students are actually going to love you for that because now you just saved them some money, right? And you just save your school a big hit on retention. Okay. So communication is very key in admissions. Unfortunately, sometimes when advisors think of communication and admissions, they're thinking, okay, well, this is a process where a student comes in, I give all of this information, and they enroll in class. That's not how this works. Okay, it takes a lot more conversation, a lot more helping your students understand why they feel they need this next move. Is it for their families? Is it for themselves? Does it make them feel better as a person? All of this ties into the role of an admissions advisor and how well you are able to communicate with potential students. Okay, is that who you are? Okay, for my tenured advisors, did you stray away from this? All right, number two, emotional stamina. Now, this is something that you won't hear in an interview, right? But really and truly, especially when it comes to career education, our students, they come with a lot of emotional baggage. And sometimes, you know what, that's what really helps them take action. When they're able to open up and talk about their fears and what has been hurting them, what has been preventing them. And some of these stories are very heavy. You have to be able to decide, as an advisor, I need to take a step back. I need to take a breather and I need to fill my cup before I'm able to fill anyone else's. I remember as an advisor about 17 years ago, I remember this lady came into the office and there was like a big chunk, like a rectangular piece of her forearm that was missing because of an abusive situation. Imagine I'm sitting there crying with her and I'm just as weak. And she's like, okay, well, I came here to get someone to lift me up. And this person is like in shambles. That's not really going to be able to help them. You have to be able to show empathy. And part of empathy is telling someone their situation sucks. Really, sometimes it's not all about, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry to hear that. Sometimes it's a grand wow. That is horrible. And I have no idea what I would do if I were in your situation. However, and then you begin to build them. I've been sitting here, I'm listening to you, and I can see how dedicated and committed you are to making a change. So I know that you're going to be able to get through that. It takes a certain type of personality to be able to connect with someone on that level. Emotional stamina is very important when it comes to the role of an advisor. The worst thing you can do is have a student sit in front of you or be on the phone with you and they're pouring out their entire life and what brought them to the point of calling your school just to hear, okay, on to the next question. It's the worst thing that you can do. You have to be able to pick people up, inspire them, motivate them to move forward. Okay. And sometimes this comes naturally to some people. In other cases, it just takes practice. And then you have other people who just don't have it. Right. So now you have to look at yourself as an individual and say, is that who I am? This is an industry where you are really making a difference every single day. And it's a life changing experience. And for you to get to that point, you have to make sure that you have emotional stamina. Admissions is not for everyone, but it's one of the best decisions that you could ever make as a career path. Okay. The third thing, innovation. All right. Anything that you do in sales is like this, it's like a roller coaster, right? So when you think of being innovative, you have to go back and you have to think, okay, it's sales. So I'm assuming for my new people, I'm assuming that there are going to be some dry seasons. There are going to be some seasons where I may not get any lead flow at all. And there may be some seasons where I'm just overwhelmed with leads. You have to be able to manage those expectations. But when I talk about innovation, I'm talking about those dry seasons. What happens when an entire week goes by, you don't even receive not one lead? You have to be able to say, okay, what do I have in my pot? What haven't I worked properly? Who haven't I reached out to in a long time? I need to get some referrals. Maybe I hop in my car and go to an area and walk door to door, hand out some flyers. Maybe I take a walk around my campus if you're a ground campus, right? And talk to some of the students and ask them, hey, is there anyone that you know who's looking for the same opportunity that you were given? If you're an online school, maybe you can revisit your start list, a start list from 2 sessions ago, see how they're doing, and then ask them, hey, based on your experience, have you thought about a study buddy, an accountability partner, or someone that you've come past in the past couple months who can benefit from the same opportunity? You have to be able to think outside the box. What kind of events can I actually go visit so I can bring more awareness to my campus? Okay, what kind of events can I actually run in the school so I get more students in the door to actually take a look at the campus, do a presentation, and see where their head is at? You have to be able to think outside the box and get creative, all right? Because your students, they have options. So if you are interested in this position, you have to think to yourself, am I an innovator? Am I creative? Am I the type of person that can think outside the box? For my tenured advisors, when is the last time that you've done any of what I have mentioned? It's never too late to get back on track. Here is the fourth and final one. Okay. And keep in mind, these are my top four. There are like thousands of different traits that you need as an advisor, but these are my top four. The last one is a positive mindset. And here's what I have to say about that. When you think of a positive mindset, it is a decision. It is not butterflies that you wake up with in the morning and you're like, oh my gosh, I feel like today is going to be the best day ever. It's a decision. You have to wake up in the morning, regardless if you feel like it or you don't, and you're going to say, I am going to have an amazing day. Today is going to be an amazing day. You have to speak those words into existence, because look, in anything that you do, there's going to be some mornings where you're like, I'm not feeling it today. I don't feel like doing anything, right? But when you have that positive mindset, you're thinking with the glass half full and not half empty. Now, here's the beautiful thing about admissions for anyone who is looking to get into this role, or my tenured advisors who forgot to do this, right? In this role, the beautiful thing about it is you have an advantage to see where you are at every point in the process. So if you realize that no one is answering the phone, you can go back and say, well, how many dials did I actually make today? Oh my gosh. You can actually change the time that you're calling these people. You can look at the messaging that you're sending. Because the bottom line is, if your messaging does not relate to a certain person, they're not going to respond. So you always have to be switching it up. Or if you don't have any appointments coming in, you can say, dang, I thought I had some great conversations. Maybe I was given too much information. So now they have absolutely no reason to come see me. If you don't have a lot of interviews, you can be saying, okay, was I domineering during this interview? Did I give them a reason? Did I give them an opportunity to talk? At the end of your interview, you should be able to have three reasons why this student needs this opportunity. And if you don't, you miss something. If you don't, maybe you were talking 90% of the time, right? If in fact you had so many people that enrolled, but now you're realizing, why is it that every session I have so many enrollments up front, and the closer we get to the class start, my class start starts to pay attention, starts to fall apart. Guess what? You can look at your stitch activity. What did that look like? Okay. How was my follow up activity? And a side note, I did an entire training on the stitch and the follow up process. If you are interested in that, I will give you the details at the end of this podcast. But when it comes to advising, the great thing that I always say about admissions is you have the opportunity to track your activity. You can see where your strengths are and you can look at where your opportunities lie so that you don't have the repeat of the day before that you didn't think went so well. All right. So I'm going to revisit these. Remember, number one, you have to be a great communicator. If you are not a great listener at all, you're not going to be able to help your students because you're not going to know who they are and you're not going to understand their situation and why they need this. Emotional stamina. Some of these stories are going to get to you. Okay. But now you have an opportunity to be there for those students, because you have to understand that a lot of times you are the last key, and some of our students do not have anybody else to turn to. All right. It's a great relationship to have. And sometimes when it comes to our students and making it to the finish line, a lot of times it was because of you, their advisor. So now when you see them on the train and when you see them driving and when you see them in the supermarket and they're like, oh my gosh, do you remember me? That is what should keep you grounded and wanting to go back in for more the next day. Okay. The third thing is innovation. Anything that happens, especially when it comes to sales, there's going to be some seasons where it's kind of challenging. So you have to be able to say, I'm not going out like that. Okay. These are some things that I'm going to do to make sure that I do not fall behind. So you have to think outside the box and make sure that you do not fall behind. There are thousands of people all over the world who are looking for an opportunity. You have to find them sometimes. Okay. And the fourth thing is a positive mindset. When you're talking about an industry like higher education, especially when it comes to admissions, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of legwork, right? It's a lot of dials. It's a lot of conversations that you're having that sometimes goes nowhere, right? It's a lot of interviews that you have where it doesn't always end up in enrollment because, students have different circumstances, but you have to be able to say, that does not mean anything. I'm going to revisit that situation. However, there are thousands of people who still need my help. I am looking at the glass half full because there's always other opportunities out there to succeed. The minute you start looking at the glass half empty, you've already lost the battle because you're now looking at it as a loss instead of potential for gain. All right. So keep that in mind. So now you have to tell me, my tenured advisors, did you miss anything? Is there anything that you can say, oh my goodness, point two and three, I totally forgot about that. Maybe I still have a shot. Okay. Maybe this is something that I'm truly passionate about. Just had a dark time and I need to get back on track. And for anyone considering, this role, there's a lot of other things that you need. A lot of it comes with training and direction and given the resources needed to succeed. But out of what I named, you have to think to yourself, you know who you are, right? You know what you can withstand. And so you have to say, is this for me? Is it worth it to change one single life and make a difference? All right, let me know your thoughts. So, a couple of things. I have master classes for any leader or any advisor who's looking for information on various topics on motivation, inspiration, surviving higher education. All right. You can head to my website at lessons.motivatewithkat.com. For any of my leaders who are listening, if you need help with your admissions team, or if you need something that can complement what your directors of admissions are already doing, Next Level Admissions has launched. It is a platform that gives your advisors, new or tenured, an opportunity to learn the entire admissions process, effective communication, managing class start expectations, everything. And it gives them 1 year unlimited access. It's a lot of fun. There's tons of students who are enrolled in the community and they are having a ball. It's comprised of skits, video presentations, quizzes, which is really interesting to revisit. Okay, but they will have a lot of fun. Let me know if this is something that you are still interested in. You can head over to my website at lessons.motivatewithkat.com and scroll down and you'll see the Next Level Admissions training portal. Email me at kb@motivatewithkat.com so that we can set up a demo. But I definitely enjoyed being back. I have some amazing guests that are set up over the next several months. So I will see you back here again. Until then, take care, guys. I really hope that you enjoyed that episode. I have been working diligently to bring awareness to career schools. There's so much that they have to offer our students and our community. Every single role within the admissions process is critical, whether you're a part of the admissions team, financial aid, career services, academics, everyone deserves a voice. Admissions is the first point of contact for your school, so you want to ensure that you have a team who exudes confidence, passion, and a clear understanding of effective communication with our potential students. I totally understand the pain of missed class starts, low appointment and enrollment conversions, and this is why I created Next Level Admissions Training by Motivate with K.A.T. This platform is a step-by-step process, and it is going to train your new and tenured advisors in every single step of the enrollment process to ensure that our students are inspired, and they're ready and prepared to start class. Admissions is not easy. It can be very challenging, but it's definitely worth it. So if you're ready to take your school to the next level, head on over to lessons.motivatewithkat.com and check out Next Level Admissions.